Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome, welcome. We are going to be painting a vintage ornament plate. It's really a easy technique. I think you'll like it. I think you can use it on a lot of different things. So I'm going to give it just a few minutes and allow some people to join in. Hope you guys are doing well. If you missed last night's broadcast, be sure and check it out. I did just ornaments. This has got holly leaves, like a Christmas rose flower, and regular leaves. So when you pop on, be sure and comment. Let me know that you're here and that you can hear me okay. So I'll give it just a few minutes to allow some people to jump on, okay? Everyone really liked the technique last night, so hopefully I'll see some things that you guys are posting and what you're doing with the technique. Hey there. All right, just comment that you can hear me okay before I get started, if you don't mind. Be sure and like, share, subscribe if you're not subscribed to my YouTube channel, and click the bell for all notifications so that you know when I'm going live or I upload a video. Tonight is, or this afternoon, is a ceramic technique. Some of the things you can still use on the other mediums also, but I'll go over that later. Hey, Brenda. All right, everybody can hear me okay, hopefully. I'm going to give it just a few minutes for others to join in. Loud and clear. Okay. Hey there. Okay, awesome. All right, so I'm going to get started. I'm sure people will start joining in. I'm going to go to my overhead. So I had done just this little sample tile. So you could do it on a tile if you want to just test the technique and not jump into a big plate. This is earthenware. This is just a commercial tile. And this particular plate is earthenware. Okay. But tonight I'm actually going to be doing it on a piece of stoneware. All right. Just so that you know that. Last night we did this project. Link at the top of the YouTube with my blog post. If you're not familiar with those, the blog, I always put the link to the videos, and I also put any paperwork, patterns, anything that I want associated with that particular video will be out there. So this is the PDF that's out there. It's got your color, your brushes, basic information on the technique. And then I gave you stencils that I could use. I went ahead and left this in. You may want to write Merry Christmas on your plate if you're doing it. This is one that I used last night. In the PDF, there are live links to these stencils so that you can go purchase them. They're not on my website. These are from other companies. 3 of them are from cdstencils.com, and this little lacy looking one is from sandymcteerdesigns.com. But all you have to do is download that PDF and click on that link, and it'll take you to that if you choose to purchase it. Here is just some quick steps, like a background that I'm going to put in, the leaves, and then before firing, and then I give you after firing photos so that you can kind of look at yours and tell if it's missing something, needs something else. You get the pattern. You can always take that and size it into different sizes for what you're doing. Okay. Nancy says she's so glad I'm doing it tonight. Well, I asked Kevin and Jess, we send our best to them. They are ill. And I said, do you want me to go ahead and go live? I know a lot of people were waiting for this, and they said, go for it. Okay. So that's the reason I came on. Hey, Teresa. Okay. And even if you're an acrylic painter like Teresa, you still can do the same similar techniques, just in another medium. So what I did was I took the pattern. If you're not familiar with how to trace and transfer a pattern, take your pattern, lay a piece of cheap, inexpensive tissue over it, and then with the pencil, you want to draw your design, transfer it onto the tissue. Then what you're going to do is lay the tissue onto your ware, whatever you're going to put this on, position it, and then because I am on stoneware, I'm using Mako's stoneware bisque. It's an 04 stoneware. I'm using an ultra fine Sharpie. marker, and you basically just, and I'll transfer one up here, you go over your pattern slowly and it will transfer to your ware. Okay. Now, if you're on earthenware, you don't want to use the Sharpie marker and trap it between the bisque and the glaze because it can repel product. You want to use your watercolor marker. You want to use those Statler Tri-Plus fine liners. Okay, it's got like a Sharpie point, and I'll just make a mark out here. It, of course, it didn't transfer. So you have to go a little bit slower with it, but it will transfer onto your ware also. Okay, so either one will work on any type of surface. Only use the Sharpie marker when you're working on stoneware, bisque, 04 bisque, or if you're on greenware, on earthenware or stoneware, it'll work. So I've already transferred this on there for you. You don't have to have a real solid line. Okay, you just need to know where the pattern is. So don't freak out and think it has to be a dark line. You're just wanting an idea of where it's going to go. So Teresa says she ordered the stencils last night. Thank you. I'm glad that you like them that well. They are pretty fun to do. So tonight we're going to use 2 stencils. And like I said, they're in your paperwork. This one is from CD Stencils. It's called Fa La La, but it's got 3 different size ornaments, and that's the reason I chose it. It is CH1547, okay, is the number. And I chose it because if I was just randomly going to place ornaments on here, I could go in, I could set down my stencil, circle around it, which is what I did in the beginning for the other one and for this one, and then I built the design around it. But we're going to use that when we get to the stenciling part. The other stencil here is also from CD Stencils. This is 09-19302, but those links are in that paperwork, so don't forget to check that out. Okay. All right, so I've got the tile up there on your screen so that you can kind of see where we're headed as we're doing this. Let me just clean up this area. We're going to put a background in, and we're going to make a wash of color. When you make a wash, you start with color. I'm going to use CC 103 Vellum Gray, and I'm also going to use CSP01 Gloss Medium NT Clear. This is the clear glaze that we use on earthenware. It is not to be used, all of you that are cone 6, cone 5 ware people, you don't want to use this as your clear glaze. It will craze. I recommend, so on this particular piece here, I was going to see if I had any back here. I'm going to use Mako's SW004 Zinc Free Clear, and I do not have one of those here. Hey, Miss Cindy, thanks for joining. So I'm going to mix these equal parts. And the reason I'm doing that is because I want to be able to manipulate and move this around. If you use the color straight from the bottle, what's going to happen is it's going to grab to the bisque. It doesn't matter what clay body you're working on. It's going to grab to that bisque and it's going to be there. It's going to be hard to move and get it to disperse evenly. Okay. I'm going to mix that up with the handle of my brush. And the reason I'm doing it with the handle is because then I don't waste as much product. Okay. All right. Keep my little sponge there. And then you want to put a well of water. So you always start with your lightest color when you're making a wash. Well, the lightest color is water, right? I'm going to dampen my brush, blot it. I'm going to grab a brush load and I'm going to put it into that water. And I'm going to keep it stirred up. As I'm working, I want to go back and constantly stir that. The color is heavier than the water. It's going to fall to the bottom of the well. And if you don't stir it up, you're not going to get the same consistency of the product. Okay. So let me turn this light down here. All right. So I'm going to just start next to the design. I have the, my writing is wore off of this. This is the medium Sumi brush that tells you how much I used it. And I'm just going to mush the color on. Sit it down, mush, mush, mush. Constantly stir. when I need more. And you're going to avoid the design, especially the leaves, the ornaments, the flowers, these little background leaves, or I call them the shadow leaves. I'm not worried about it. I'm really not worried about the stem either. But I like to start near the design and work my way out. I will have less product, less color as I come out because I want it to be stronger next to the design. We're going to do multiple things. And tonight, since I'm not on a time constraint of an hour that I would have been on clay share, I will, I'm just going to work the whole project, and you can stick around for it, or you can come back and watch the recording later. Okay, so I'm going to go in between. So now I'm just kind of taking the tip of my brush and letting that fall in between the design. So it just falls right off of that brush. You just don't want gray underneath, you know, your greens. And then we've got some yellows that are going to be on those holly leaves too. It could go over the top of the berries if you wanted. I'm not going to worry about them as much. Constantly stir and add. You'll know when you need more. If your brush starts dragging or you can't see any color coming off, then you either are too weak with your mix. You may need to add a little bit more color in there. Hi, Susan. Susan says she just painted a couple of mugs with the fall leaves using the concentrates. I can't wait to get them fired. Your products are wonderful. Thank you. Well, thank you. I'm glad you enjoy them. I enjoy them. They, you know, are in a gel base. This is a, I jumped right in and forgot to explain what I was using. The color concentrate that I'm using is a translucent or transparent underglaze. Okay. We are going to use some opaque underglazes, which are our color strokes, but these are the color concentrates. So we're just going to mush on and create a watercolor background. I am working on stoneware tonight. The examples that I put in the paperwork are earthenware. So keep that in mind. I think mainly just the greens had changed slightly, but there's not really that much difference. But like I said, if you're on stoneware, my recommendation is the SW004 Zinc Free Clear by Mako. I have found that to be the best for me as far as holding pinks and purples. And we do have some pinks in this. You could always change the ornament color if you didn't want it with the red. Or in this case, I use tea rose from the color strokes, and then we have a red geranium on top of it. Now, on the top of the comments in YouTube there is the link to my blog. And then I did put a comment with the stencil brushes link. The blog will have the pattern, step-by-step instructions, photographs, all that out there for you. All right, I'm getting low, so I'm going to make another wash. I'm going to fill that well with water. Take 1 healthy scoop of color, mix that in. Be sure and get all of that off of the bristles of the brush. And then start again. You may not like it as dark. You could just do a half a scoop of color. Totally up to you. Or if you add more of the gloss medium to your color, it will be lighter in shade also. You can thin it down that way. See how I'm constantly moving? The only time that I'm lifting my brush is when I'm going over to get more product. Why am I worried about covering some things and not others? Luann asked. Because this is a gray color. This is vellum gray. And anytime you layer colors, it can change the value and the color of the end product. So I don't want gray underneath yellows that I'm going to use on the leaves, and I don't want it underneath the pink and red ornament. So that's why I'm doing that. Thanks for asking. That's a very good question. So you got to know what's going to happen to it when it fires. And that's why I chose to do that. Okay, so now if you notice, there's some areas that are a little darker, which is okay if it's close to design, but just so you know what to do if you get an area that you don't like, I just rinse my brush with water, and I can come back and just do that mush mush in that area that's darkest, and I can disperse that because I have the medium mixed with the color. Okay, if you've got the medium, it's an extender and opener, allows you to manipulate and move and maneuver the product around so that you can get it like you want it. So I'm just going back and evening, it's kind of hard to say, out the color. I'm going to add just a little bit more. So it keeps that color open long enough that I can go back and add or change the value by just coming back with water. And now I'm adding more color up next to the design. I want it just a shade darker there in some of these areas. And that's all to your liking. Everybody has a different taste. Just remember to constantly stir that wash so that you're not ending up with just almost water that's sitting on the top. The color is heavier than the water, so it falls to the bottom. Okay. Good. I'll try to pop up and look for questions. If anybody is watching via Facebook, because I shared it to Facebook, I will go back and answer your questions later from that platform. I just knew last night I couldn't see the comments and there were people out there, so I decided to just do it via YouTube tonight. It makes it easier on me since I'm by myself to be able to answer all your questions and see your comments. Okay, so see how it's coming a little bit darker next to the design. You see the difference? And do you notice that I'm constantly turning my work as I'm going? That is a big key to anything you're doing. So many people, they work at it and they're uncomfortable. Don't do that. I can look at, if you email me a picture of something and you say, I just don't understand. I couldn't get, XYZ. What did I do wrong? I can usually look at your project and tell you that you had your brush turned the wrong way. So keep that in mind. Okay, so we've got that on there. I'm going to soften that area there. And I'm going to come in here with another color, but I wanted to make sure you understood how to... Hey, Angela, you finally got on live. Awesome. We're going to do another color now. We're going to use 163 Shadow Green. Always shake your color concentrates. And you can see by that photo up there or by this one, see the gray is very soft. It's a little darker around. We're going to add some nutmeg also to make this look like it's three-dimensional and lifting off the piece. And then we're going to add one of the darker greens around the edge also. All of that is optional. If you don't like that, you wouldn't have to do it. If you lose any hairs from your brushes, just dust them off once that area is dry. Yes, they will fire off, but let me explain something to you. And a lot of people don't tell you this. If you trap it between glaze and your color, it'll fire off, but it could also leave a white line where the product was sitting on top of it and the hair was underneath. And then when you fire it, yeah, it fires away, but you can have a white line. So I always like to just take a second and take those off and make sure that I don't have any white lines showing. Is the plate glazed first? Angela asked. No, tonight I'm going to work on Mako Stoneware Bisque. My samples were done on earthenware. This is just I don't know that it even says. I believe it might have been a Mako piece of bisque, or Duncan used to have the coupe plates, like a 10-inch coupe. This particular piece, I don't remember the size of it. It is 11, right at 11 inches, 11 and a quarter. Okay. So you can always shrink the design, right? If you have something smaller. All right, so I'm going to put out some of the 163. I'm going to mix it 50-50 with the gloss medium. That's going to keep that color open longer for me, extend the drying time, so that once again I can manipulate and move it around like I want it. Now, this is a little bit darker color, so make sure when you make your wash, you want to test it to see how much of that green you want showing. So I'm just going to get maybe a half a scoop of color, like the tip of the brush. And I'm going to test that to see if I can see it. Now, I can see it a little bit, but not really. So I'm going to add another half. So 1 scoop. And you can just go in and add this here and there. Constantly keep that stirred up. You can go all the way over this completely. Remember, every time you layer a color, it's going to be darker in that area. See how I'm constantly turning the piece, slip, slap, and I'm moving the brush around. I'm not doing this because you get a line of color, or what I call rabbit tracks. So you want to constantly change the direction, but my brush is bouncing on the surface. See that? I'm not lifting, I'm not doing this, because you will get little rabbit tracks. Okay, so constantly change the direction. That way, when you look at it, there's not a definite pattern of any sort. It's just an even application, a watercolory background. So I'm just going, the second coat goes much quicker because the fact that you've already got a coat of color on there. So this one is just sitting on the top. It's not grabbing into the bisque as much as the other one did. It is, but it just goes quicker. Okay, any questions so far? Type them in. Okay, and I do want to say, once I get this on, I want to be sure if you're a ClayShare member and you're a ClayShare Prime, you need to make sure that you go to clayshareprime.com and get your discount code for 1 week. I have discounts on the products, so be sure and check that out. If you're a regular ClayShare, or maybe you're not even ClayShare at all, I have a code for you if you want to get a pencil and paper. I'm going to make another group of wash of the color. Get a pencil and paper and I'll tell you the code. 1 second. Let me finish this. And you can use it on product, brushes. Now, when I was doing this with Jess and Kevin, we were going to give away a couple of things. I'm going to wait and let them do that when they decide to reschedule. So keep an eye out for that. Or even when Jess does a demonstration with Colors for Earth, they can give those out. That way everybody gets to take advantage of that. Okay. All right, so I am just going to add a little bit of that. Now, if you get it on an area, see how more evenly it looks mottled. If you get it on an area that you don't want it on, let's say if I got it on the flower too much, I can just clean my brush and with water, just push it back off of the area that it's on that you don't want it. I don't care about this berry, but just as an example, I can just kind of push it off of there and constantly wipe off my brush, and it totally fixes that. Because it has that open time with having the medium in it, you can do that. Okay. Now, I'm okay with what I've got here. I don't think there's any problems with any of these. maybe the yellow on the cap. We might want to take some of that off. But you got to constantly rinse and do it, because if you don't, you're just moving the color around, not removing the color. Okay, so keep that in mind. All right. Any questions about that? No. Okay, so the discount code, if you've got your pencils ready, for 1 week until October the 30th, you get a 15% discount. And I didn't make up a sheet on this, guys. For anything on the website. I guess I could draw it out here, write it out. Where is my marker go to? Is regular Clayshare or anybody else CS10. Now what I do? I just did SC. So CS102024. Okay. So CS for Clayshare, 10 for the month, and then the year. Caps on CS. That is for 15% off through the 30th. Now, if you're a Clayshare Prime member, you need to go to the Prime website, ClaysharePrime.com, go to the forums, and then you'll be able to see the discount that you guys receive. And be sure and enter that code before you click place order. Okay, right at the once it totals your order, there's a place there that says have a coupon code. You click on it and enter that, and you get a discount. Okay, so you can use it on brushes, you can use it on color kits, whatever. And don't forget, we have the stencil brushes when we start to use those. We have a 4-pack, or you can buy them individually. I'm going to use 2 sizes tonight. And then those of you that are Clayshare members, we have 2 mops, the liner brushes in here, which you can't see because we have it packaged. So the liner, the 3600, and then it's got 2 of the stencil brushes in it. So you may want to pick those up while their sale is on. Okay. All right. So I am going to remove that wash because I don't need that anymore. Okay. Now I'm going to get a little cup and I'm going to put some of the gloss medium in it. The CSP01 gloss medium NT clear. That's what I mixed with the 2 colors for the background. So I'm just going to use it in my little cup. I'm going to switch over to the small Sumi brushes, and you can pick up those with the sale also. There's a set of 4, or you can buy them individually. So check those out. I'm going to wet my brush, blot it on a paper towel, and I'm going to start on, actually I see a lot of that background on that leaf, so I'm going to swish it off real quick. I'm going to start on the leaves, and this is more of a watercolor technique. Okay, so I'm going to grab my CSP01, and I'm going to do this big one first, and I'm going to put 1 coat, nothing fancy, doesn't have to be exact, on that leaf. So it's like you're prepping it so that when we put the colors on, they won't absorb directly into the wear. They're going to sit on the surface more, and they'll be lighter in tone. If you wanted darker, and this is stoneware, so it's really absorbing it. So I'm going over it kind of almost a second time. I'm going to use a lot of different colors. I'm going to use 627 Daffodil from the Color Stroke line. This is a very old bottle. I'm going to use 657 Jade. Don't forget to shake. These are the opaque colors, but I'm going to use them in a very transparent way. No drawing. Man, do what, Luann? Oh, we'll do the drawings with Clayshare, okay? So I'll let them, because they have a system, so we'll let them do those, and then we'll announce it, okay? 659, and I haven't done the ones from last night. This is Celadon, and that is another Color Stroke. We're going to use 160 key lime. And we're going to use the 163 that we had, okay? And then we're going to also add 164 mountain pine, which is a little darker shade of green. And I didn't forget about that edge. I'll do it in a bit, okay? Now, you can add color, glaze to that, the CSP01 if you want. It depends on how your wear is absorbing, and I've sit here and talked and should have had my color out before I did this, so I'm adding a little bit more on here to dampen that. Okay, so with that gloss medium in my brush, I'm going to go grab the yellow, and I'm just going to randomly pat that color on where I want it. So it might be a little bit here. We could have some up here. Now you will have to be a little more careful with it because you're trying to get it into the points. And maybe I want some here. And then I'm going to grab the 657. So basically we're going to just add these colors. You're going to overlap them onto other colors. You don't want to start and stop line. The heavier you put it on, the heavier or darker the color is going to be. And I'm just going to keep grabbing the next color that I've placed on the palette there in order from light to dark and turning my plate. Don't forget to add some to the middle. Now I'm going to grab some of that key lime and add it. Constantly turn. See how I'm aiming or tucking that color where I want it to go. You want to make sure that the whole leaf is covered with something. So if you need to go back and add, maybe you like more of that blue turquoisey look. Now I've got a line up here. So I rinsed my brush, blotted the moisture out, and I'm just coming in and softening that line so that there is not any exact line there. Okay, and then you can add a little bit of the 64, but I am going to put the gloss medium back in my brush, and I'm just going to barely tip into that 64, and I'm going to add, because it's really strong, and to me that's too much, so I'm going to blot some of that out, and I'm going to add it over here. You could add this where the shadow would be. It's up to you. If you like a lot of it, you can have a lot of it on there. Let's add a little bit down here at the tip, just to kind of tie in both sides. But do you see how when you layer the colors on top of each other, then you get that watercolor look from one color to the other, and you don't see a harsh line between it. Any questions on that? Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and block in the next one with the gloss medium. And we're doing that so that the color doesn't grab to the bisque. You're creating a barrier between the bisque and your colors so that you can manipulate and blend that. I'm going to go back to the yellow. I did not rinse my brush. Just tip into it and add it. Because we're using it in such of a light application, and then I'm going to the next one, which is 657. It's more, we're using it more as a translucent, even though it's an opaque underglaze. And the reason we can do that is because it is made for opaque coverage. And because we're doing it this way, we're cheating, so to speak, and getting that translucent coverage. So maybe a little bit of this blue or green. This is the 659, more towards the center. Constantly turning. Now I'm going to grab some of the 160. Now, because the 160 is the color concentrate, it's a little bit stronger. You may or may not want to put some of the medium in it. Just as long as you keep some of that medium in your brush, you should be fine. And then Make sure you have the medium in there and grab a little tiny bit of that 164 and tuck it in where you want a little bit darker. Isn't that pretty? And I'm going to tuck it over here, maybe down at that tip. Okay. Does that make sense why we're putting the CSP01 on first? It's a new technique. Actually, I did use it on the Aloha rooster. I base coated the area before I did the strokes to make them more translucent. Excuse me, I had to get a drink. Okay. All right, so let's go back over here and block this one in. If you get it outside your leaf, it isn't going to hurt anything at all. So you can use the CSP01 gloss medium on your stoneware porcelain as long as you're doing it like this for a decorative technique. You just do not want to use it as an overall coverage because it will craze. Okay. Any questions so far? So it's a lot of repetitive, but I do that in my designs so that by the time you're done, you should have the technique down. It's just a learning technique, so to speak. So add a little yellow, the daffodil. Wherever you want it, and you can put as much of any of these colors as you want on there. You've got the color wheels you can look at as far as what the colors look like when they fire to cone 06 or cone 656. You can download those off the website. You can also make your own color wheel. I believe I have in the blog the color wheel templates that you can download. What is craze? Okay, so crazing is like fine lines, and sometimes these commercial tiles will do it. I don't see. So it would be, hold on, let me grab my marker. I'll just mark on here. So if you tilted your finished piece, your fired piece into the light, and you start seeing these little cracks or fine little lines, you'll see it on a lot of China stuff too, or if you've used an incompatible, but it's an overall coverage. It would be over the whole thing. Little tiny, they wouldn't be black, of course. They're going to just be clear, but it's like the piece is cracked and opened up. So you have all that. We call this crazing. Sorry, that's a good question. Sometimes we assume that everybody knows what we're saying, and you don't. Bad me. All right. Hopefully that explains. I know that somebody posted something on Clayshare. I think it was on Prime the other day, and they had a problem with crazing. So it can be caused by immature bisque if you're in a low fire or earthenware, or incompatibility between glaze and bisque or product. Okay, so I'm going to add, I'm just keep going down my palette line here and adding all those colors. And if I want more of that key lime in the middle, I can add it. I can go grab some of the medium just to kind of soften that out so it's not so strong. Then I can wipe my brush off on my sponge and start the next one. So if you joined late, at the top of the chat, I have pinned the link to the PDF file. Or if you saw, I posted it also out there on Facebook. So any of my classes that I do on lives, 90% of them will have a blog post. And if I give you a pattern with supply list, whatever I give you free, it'll be listed on there. And then right below that is the link to the video. You don't have to go searching YouTube. to find it. It's all right there for you. I've tried to make it as easy as possible when doing that. So you can, there's a blog for ceramics, glass, acrylics, and brush strokes. I'm going to put some of that medium back into my brush, go into that yellow, and I'm considering this the top of my plate where the stem is. So I'm going to add some of the yellow, the daffodil on the top there, and then maybe I want some of it down towards the end. I hope this is something that you'll give a try. I think it's very, that's why I called it vintage, antique-y, old type look to it. You could do this with any other design. It doesn't have to be this design. Don't forget to overlap your colors so that you have a seamless transition from one to the other. And when you're patting, and that's why I'm not rinsing the brush in between colors, because I have a little bit of that color still left in the brush and I'm just adding the new color on the tip. So when I push down, it's bleeding that new one back into the old one, which gives you that nice transition. I'm just adding a little bit of the medium to my brush as I need it, as I feel like it's drying out. And then maybe add some of that in here. See, I'm constantly turning my brush. Overlap those strokes, overlap the colors. You can go back and add color in. And if you went back and added another layer of color, it's going to be deeper if you want it stronger than what mine is, because it's very thin application. Okay, so you can see it's a very watercolory, and that's what I was going for. I was able to achieve that. You need to make a plate, Nancy says. She needs to make a plate tomorrow so she can do one. There you go. Yeah, I wouldn't do it. I would make sure you could probably do it on the dry. If you're doing cone 6 wear, you could probably do it on dry clay. I don't know that I would do it on damp clay because I don't think it's going to absorb enough. So keep that in mind, or use it on the 04 bisque that I'm doing. But because of this watercolor technique, I don't think I would do it on the greenware state of clay. Okay, so add that in. Just this Mako stoneware is really absorbing the color or the product, so I'm adding almost like a second or a third coat of that 01, CSP 01 to it, because I need it damp when I'm working on it, basically. Grab your next color. Now, Teresa, I know that you are an acrylic painter. You could do the same by putting your blending gel down and then coming in with your color. I have a separate set of Sumi brushes for my non-fired product than I do my fired, but it works the same way, and I do a lot of my fabric painting that way. So keep that in mind. So see, I've covered up, I had yellow and then I had some green and I went back over it with another green. So don't hesitate to add those colors on top of each other. Constantly turn so that we don't have a harsh line. Oh, and you know what? I forgot to go back and do some darker 164 on those others, but I can go back and add it. So now I just grabbed the 164 on my brush and I'm adding some shadow. And see how I call this walking it back. So I start on one area and I walk it back because you're going to have less product on your brush when you're done. I'm going to grab the 01, a tiny bit of that. I'm going to go back to these because I forgot to add some of this darker color. This is the 164 shadow green, or excuse me, mountain pine. been a crazy day trying to get all this ready in a different way than what we were originally going to do it. Okay, I'm going to grab just a tiny bit. You don't need a whole lot of the, as you get darker and darker, some of the darker colors are extremely strong. So just an itty bitty bit on your brush. And I'm just constantly patting and going back and forth until I get a nice blend that I like. Okay. You can't just put it on one time and be done with it. And I'm just using that little dot that was right there. I'm going to add a little bit more on this one. You have to work it back and forth. And a lot of times I will start in the middle of the section that I want dark, and I work it to the left and the right, back and forth multiple times. So actually you're putting on more coats, but what that does is allow it to blend and soften. Okay, so we got one more over here. I'm going to blot out that. Thank you, Robin. I'm glad you like it. All right, so I'm blocking in with the gloss medium. I got some hairs over here. Get rid of those. So just pat that on. The colors are just, I'm just patting. You don't have to know any brush strokes. I know a lot of people thought the ornament had brush strokes on it, and it's a stencil. You don't have to do the comma strokes. You could if you didn't have a stencil and you were brave enough to do it, but I cheated. Okay, so we got that on there. Grab some of the yellow, the daffodil. Yeah, so Teresa and Robin are acrylic painters. But you can do this. It's just a different technique, and I'll try to explore that in my spare time. Yeah, it's spare time. Does anybody have spare time? If you do, I'd like to borrow some of it. There seems to always be something. I'm going to blot some of that yellow out because I felt like I had a little bit, I was overzealous when I dipped into it. Going into the 657 now, adding it, overlap, 659, tuck that in where you want it, and then start pat, and blending. Overlap, bring it to the middle. Okay, then we'll grab the 60, add some of that to brighten it up a little bit. Let's grab some of that and put it over here on top of that yellow. And I'm going to grab a little bit of the medium on the tip, a little tiny bit of that darker 164. I want a little bit more of that maybe down here. So now we have other leaves, which are the flower leaves, is how I wrote it on your paperwork. And those are going to be done a different way. You could even come down the center vein if you wanted. I did not. I've done that on a lot of different things where you could shade, but I wanted these left nice and soft. These are the leaves that I'm calling the flower leaves. You've got 3 here, 3 here, and then you have your little calyx to the bud. So we're going to do what I call a 2-color blend on those. I'm going to rinse my brush. I think I got all those. Now, when doing that, they do have to be mixed with the medium, and we're going to use the 160 and the 164, which I already have out here. So now all I'm going to do is add the medium to it. So how is everyone this afternoon? Well, it's afternoon for me. It's evening for some of you guys. Do you like the project? Do you like the technique? You can always download that pattern and use it for whatever you want. If you're an acrylic painter, you can use it on acrylics. You could do a shirt with it. Totally up to you how you use it. My gift to you. Merry Christmas. Right? All right. 2-color blend. Still using the small Sumi brush. I'm going to fully load with the 160 mix. And I'm going to add that to the tip of that leaf. And I'm going to pat it in. And I'm going to come halfway back. And I'm patting multiple. Remember, your pattern is a guide. I always paint larger than my pattern. Okay, so I'm halfway back. I'm going to turn it around, and I am going to zoom in a little bit closer so you can see this. So with that still in my brush, I'm going to tip into that darker color just on the tip of the brush, and I'm going to go over here next to the flower and start in the middle. Sit it down, mush, 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 walk it to the right, and walk it to the left. So walk it back and forth. And we're going to do 2 coats like this. Okay, nice soft blend. First coat, you'll kind of see the lines. Second coat, it goes away. Now, when you get ready to start your next leaf, you just wipe. Do not rinse. Do not keep going back and forth. Just take out what's on the tip of the brush, because what goes on the brush last comes off first. I'm going to fully load into the key lime again, and I'm going to do this one. So I'm going to add that to the tip. Sit it down, mush, 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 mush that color on. So I'm adding almost like 2 coats of that color. Turn the piece around, grab a little tiny bit of that dark on the tip of my brush. Tuck that where you want it in the middle. I'm going to add a little bit more than what I had. And walk it to the right and walk it to the left. Now, those of you that are new to this technique, I'm going to wipe. I think I came in a little too close. I am going to change the camera angle so that you can see what I'm doing. I'm going to do side and overhead camera because I want you to be able to see the amount of pressure that I'm putting down. Okay. I'm going to fully load in that key lime mix. I'm going to tuck this over here, sit it down, so I'm bending the bristles about halfway and patting that color on back and forth, right and left. Okay, then I'm going to turn the piece, and now I'm going to tip into the darker color, the 164, and I'm going to tuck it in next to the flower and do the same thing and keep going back and forth until I have a nice transition. Because I have the dark on the tip of the brush, the light in the rest of the brush, it bleeds back into that, which causes that nice transition of color. So tuck it in, walk it to the left, walk it to the right. You can even come down one side if you want more of a shadow on a side. Okay. So that is considered 1 coat. I'm going to rinse my brush only because I kind of got out of my line, and I'm just going to push that color back towards the other end. All right, now we're going to go up here and do this one. Fully load in the key lime mix. Tuck it where you want it. You may have to be on the tippy toes to get it into the point. Turn it around, and I do this every single time. And you only do, this is a question some people, they go and do the light color on all of the leaves and then come back and do the dark. No. Do it exactly like I'm showing it. You need to do light and dark, wet on wet to get that transition. If the color dries way too fast, so you need to do both colors at once on one leaf and then go work on another leaf. I wiped off my excess color or the dark color, and now I'm going to go back over here. Okay, so Angela says she loves the project, but she only has the color concentrates. Yes, you can do it with just the color concentrates. The ornament will just, you may have to put more coats on the ornament to make it a little darker, But yes, you can just use the concentrates. The only thing that it might make a difference would be on that highlight on the ornament. I used the white of the color stroke because I wanted it to block out. But you can use the color concentrates, absolutely. But remember, you have a coupon code that you can use. If you join late, it is for 15% off your purchases for the next week is CS for ClayShare 10 20 24, and the CS needs to be all caps. If you're a Prime member, you need to go to clayshareprime.com and find your member discount, and you get 20% off if you're a Prime member, but you got to have that code. Oh, and I just loaded the dark color and I didn't mean to. I was talking. Light color 160. So even those of you that are not clay people, if you're looking for brushes, this is a good time to get some brushes at a discount. Hint, hint. Use that coupon code. And make sure you enter it before you check out, because I can't change it once it's entered. I never see those, the credit cards. That's all done through the website. Oh, and look what I did. I forgot to do that one. Shame on me. Somebody probably saw that. Quickly while it's wet. Do it, do it, do it. Now, see, I have more of a line. So what I'm going to do is wipe out my brush. I'm going to grab the key lime and I'm going to add it up there first. And then I'm going to add the 164 mountain pine. Okay, I'm going to rinse. And if I don't want that out there, I can push it back a little bit. Just make sure you check your background and you've got something. We're going to shade around this also, so I'm not real concerned about it. Okay, so that is one coat on those. While those are drying for a minute, I'm going to show you the wedge strokes, which are a watercolor with a number 10 square shader, and I did not bring, I'm going to do it on here. So while this is drying, and I'm going to leave the side camera on because, oops, hold on, I touched something. I want you to be able to see this stroke. So when I say the floaters or the background leaves, they're these ones that are not connected to anything. They don't, well, I mistakenly gave this one a center vein, but when I was drawing the pattern out last night. Okay, so we want to take some of the 163, which was that first green that we used, the shadow green, and it's mixed with the medium. I'm going to wet my brush. And because it's mixed with the medium, it is thinner than just straight from the bottle, right? When you floating color, you water load, drag off the side, turn the brush over, drag it off again. That removes the excess water. It also gives you that nice chisel edge. Do you see the chisel edge there? Okay, so every time I'm going to wipe or drag, then I'm going to put the writing of the brush towards me, and I'm going to, well, if you were going to corner load, we don't need to do that this time. I'm going to fully load. I got ahead of myself. I'm thinking about the shading in the background. I'm going to fully load with that wash. I am going to add a little bit of water to that. I want it slightly thinner. Okay, so what we're going to do is, let me get a pencil here, because a lot of people haven't done these or maybe need more practice. So this is your leaf. Imagine that's your stem, okay? So you're going to, most people will tend to start squared off. Make sure you can see it on both cameras. Squared off at the stem. You need to tilt it and be inside that V that's there. So a brush stroke is color, pressure, and motion. So I'm going to press down, pull, and then I'm going to slide off to a point. So on the side camera there, you can see the amount of pressure. So I'm standing almost straight up, and I'm going to press, pull, and slide off to the chisel. Let's do another one. Press, pull, and slide off. So it's almost like as soon as you press down, you need to start lifting and come off. So all of these little ones in the background is what we're going to do. We're going to press, pull, and lift. You can press, pull, and lift going out towards yourself if it's easier for you to do it that way. Either way works. Okay. Any questions about that stroke? This is called a wedge stroke. And I'm calling these floaters or background leaves. You can kind of see them better on the tile here. You see these here? They're like shadow leaves. They're just sitting in the background. It gives you the illusion there's something back there, but it's not as pronounced as your other ones. So anytime you do a design, you need 3 levels of interest. So when you look at this design, you see the ornament first. The next thing you see are the flowers and the leaves, and then you see the background. So there's your 3 levels of interest. So think about that as you're designing your own things, and it makes it more interesting, I think, personally. So I've thinned that 163 mix down a little bit, and now I'm going to go over here. I'm going to hold this back further so you can see. So I'm just going to press and slide off. Press and slide off. Press and slide off. Press and slide off. So you see they're very soft in the background. You can do it towards you or away. You need to practice and see what's going to work for you. And I just use these as filler leaves also. Press and slide off, press and slide off, press and slide off. Press and slide off, press and slide off, press and slide off. Okay, let's switch back to our overhead. Okay, so you can see all those on there. So those are just shadow leaves. And so if you had something and you say, oh, you know what, I want one here, you can always come back and add those in. It doesn't matter. Any questions about those before I move on? Get another drink. Okay, we need to go back to, let's see, I'm looking at the questions. Yes, you do have to put a clear glaze over this, and I forgot to write that in my instructions, Karen. I apologize. So if you're doing earthenware, which was my samples are on earthenware, that I use my CSP01 NT Clear for earthenware. If you're on stoneware, which is what I'm on tonight, I'm going to use Mako SW004 Zinc Free Clear. Zinc Free is better. It's going to hold the pinks and purples for you better than the other ones. But do a test. You know, a lot of people have done their own color wheels or color charts and did a row with a zinc free and then one that's not zinc free, just to see the difference, what you're going to get. There's a lot of people that have used multiple brands, but the zinc free tends to be the best. So I'm doing my second coat. So I use the lighter green, the key lime mix. Remember, this has the medium mixed in it. Set it down, mush, mush, mush. Wipe out that dark color on your sponge. You can't see that. So let me back off just a little bit. So I'm just going to wipe out the dark, go back into the light. And you could change these colors. You wouldn't have to use the 160 and the 164. That's totally up to you. You could use the 162 if you like that more traditional green. I was just trying to keep it soft and to that vintage look. And I felt like the sagey colors of green, I just cleaned, took another brush with dampened in there to get rid of that I went out of the line. Lucy, 2 days in a row. I know. Well, Clay shared Jessica and Kevin are both sick when they came home sick from their trip. And I know we were talking about all this being on, and everybody was anxious for the project. And so I got permission to go ahead and do the project with everybody tonight. But as far as the prizes, we'll let Kevin do his magic to be entered into any of the prizes that Clayshare gives out. You just need to sign up for their email on clayshare.com for their newsletters and stuff. So take that. Make sure you do that. You liked it. Thank you. I'm glad you like it. Zinc free is what you use, Karen. Okay. Good, good. That's the best for my products. You know, everybody does different things. So whatever the manufacturer recommends is what you should use. And it was kind of silly for me to try to come out with a cone 5, cone 6 clear when there were so many of them on the market. So I just decided to use the Mako. So I'm just using a clean semi brush and water to clean up any edges that I might go out of. Excuse me. These lights get hot. So this is my second coat. This is a 2-color blend. I've done it with 3 colors also. Constantly turn your piece so that you're tucking that color where it needs to go. And you're pushing down, which is causing that color to bleed into the other color that's still on your brush and give you a nice transition. Excuse me. Yes, zinc free is what you need to use, Karen. I know in the beginning I tried the Amico HF9. It was okay, but I didn't. It still caused some of the colors to bleach out. I think Stacy has used. Somebody's used the Spectrum, so and just keep working that till you get a nice transition. Okay, not pretty. So 2 coats on there. I'm going to rinse my brush. Now, another way, because sometimes I'll do 3 coats, another way to make sure that you get the right number of coats onto the area, I'm trying to find my marker. You can take those Statler Triplus fine liners that are water-based, and you could put 2 dots out to the side of the area that you're trying to keep track of, and you can say, okay, I know I have 2 coats on those. Because if you have to walk away, the kids, the phone rings, the dog, whatever the case is, and you can't, you're like, oh, was I on this one or this one? That's a good way to mark your colors. Okay. Another little pro tip, I guess you could call it. All right. Now we need white. We're going to do the, I'm going to do the flowers and then I'll do the ornament. So I'm going to use 634 Tea Rose and 602 White from the Color Stroke line. So whoever said that they only had Angela, just change the colors. Just remember that the pinks in the Color Stroke line tend to hold the pinks and purples better because they're opaque underglaze. So if you use, let's say you go to the 131 Cabernet, chances are it's going to burn out. Go heavier, okay, with your color. When you get it like you want it, add another coat or bump up to the 132 Deep Cranberry, which will tend to be bleached out back down to like a pink. Okay, so you might want to just test your colors. Hello, Misty. I'm glad you liked the project. Thank you. So I'm going to use 634 Tea Rose, and then 602 White. And Angela, we have a Clayshare color stroke kit. Let me see if I have a picture of it. Hold on 1 second. I think I do. Yes. Let's see if this works. So on the left is all the color strokes. There's 62 plus a speck. And the Clayshare color stroke kit has 12 colors, which has in it the 657 we are using tonight. We're using the 634, we're using the white, and we're using the yellow. So there, I purposely picked some of those colors so that if somebody was buying and you get your discount, so keep that in mind. So you may want to pick one of those up, and at least have a few of the colors to work with. Okay, and the pinks and purples in that kit will hold better than the pinks and purples in the color strokes. Does that make sense? Hopefully you understand that. Okay, now I'm going to do what I call sumi shade. I'm going to use the small sumi brush. I'm going to bring my water over here so you can see, and then after I do a couple, then I'll put it down. Okay, I'm going to take clean water, small sumi, drag it off, turn it over, drag it off 2 or 3 times to achieve a point. So I've removed the excess water, but I'm using water as the carrier. Okay, I'm going to tip into the white, and I'm going to tuck that color on the outside or the outer edge of the petal. Sit it down, mush, 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 walk it to the right, walk it to the left. Rinse, drag off, and I'll do it again here. Sit it down, and it's hard to see it. So it's going on the outside edge of those petals. But you definitely want to make sure you have clean water to do that. Okay, so I'm going to go around. Now on this one, because we're just adding the white on the outside, we're going to add the pink towards the middle that you can see on the flowers on that corner picture that I have up there for you. You don't have to do both colors at once on the area. You can actually do them individually. And it doesn't really show up until it starts to dry. And the Mako bisque and some bisque itself, especially like if you're working on B-Mix and it's an off white color, so this will really pop as white. You could leave it the natural color, but most of your clay bodies have a little bit of a color unless you're on white porcelain. I already did that one. Okay, now I'll go down here. So I'm just tucking it in along the outer edge, constantly rinsing and reloading, dragging off the excess water of my brush. And that also allows me to get a point on the brush. Sit it down, mush, mush, mush. All right, I'm going to rinse that, drag off, and this time I'm going to grab the tea rose, the pink color, and I'm going to tuck it in near the center and do the same thing. Sit it down, mush, 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 walk it to the right, walk it to the left until it's nice and soft like I want it. Constantly rinse. So Angela says she's tried some of the pinks and the red. The red should not burn out. But the 130, 31, and 32 will definitely bleach out or burn out, however you want to refer to it. It softens. But your zinc free will help. And it all depends on how heavy you go with the product too. Because I know Jessica uses it in a very watercolory manner. And you see how I got that spot there? I rinsed my brush and I'm just going to come back with water. The color strokes have an opacifier in it. So it's still got the pigment. It's got the opacifier and a smidge of clay, but not enough for you to even feel it into the color. If you were to take it and rub it between your fingers, you wouldn't be able to feel it. So Jessica uses the color very thin. So my colors tend to look a lot darker than hers because I use them in a different way. So keep that in mind. It's all technique dependent. I'm going to add a little bit more there. So I start here and I'm coming back. So I'm walking it back down the petal so that color will, and I'll have less on my brush as I go back which is what I want. I want it to be darker towards the center, right? So Susan says the Mako zinc free worked better than the Speedball and Amico zinc free. I have not used the Speedball one. I have used the Amico, and I agree. The Mako SW004 zinc free clear is my go-to. Also, the one that the 2167 that Jess has, that works. Also, that's what she uses most of the time, and she gets good results with that. I just had tried different ones so that, because I know not everybody has access or has, the same ones. So keep that in mind. If you're going to be doing a lot of pinks and purples, I would definitely get you some of the Mako clear, the SW004 zinc free clear. Okay, so you can come back if you see an area that you need to soften, because it has the gel in it and it keeps it open longer to allow you to manipulate it. Okay, I forgot my bud. So let's put some white on the tip of the petals. And let's rinse. Angela's making a plate right now. She hopes to have it ready by December 7th. Awesome. I can't wait to see you guys' projects. I love it. Tag me so that I can see what you've done. I love what you guys are doing with the product. Makes me happy. And if you succeed, I succeed. That's why I keep doing these videos, because I want you to feel comfortable with the product, that you try things on your own. Because a lot of people are like, I can't paint. Doing it this way, you don't have to paint per se. Okay. All right. So, and another little pro tip: if your plate is sitting directly onto the table or the surface you're working on, if you'll put something underneath, a brush handle, a pencil, something that'll allow air to get underneath it and allow it to dry quicker. Okay. All right. So now for the stenciling. If you did not see last night, we're going to stencil on the 634 Tea Rose on the background, and then we're going to come in with 111 Red Geranium for our little stroke work. You do not have to know how to do strokes, which is pretty cool. So this, and all these stencils are linked in the PDF that's out there on the website, on the blog. So let's find, and this is pliable enough that you can hold it down. I think it's this one. Is it that one? Ah, it's smaller. Oh no, what am I gonna do? Shame on me. That's okay. We'll go up this way more, which will be fine. Okay, so you can't really tape that down because you've got color underneath it. Even your painter's tape will possibly pull off your color. Okay, so keep that in mind. I'm gonna get my blue towel. I like blue shop towel to wipe my stencil off with, stencil brush off with. I'm going to use the number 18. Okay, these are the synthetic nylon. They're great brushes because they're straight on the bottom as opposed to like a domed where they weep and get underneath your stencils. I think if you haven't tried these, they are awesome. They're the best brush I have found on the market for stenciling. So give them a try. You can buy them singly, or you can buy packages, or we do have that clay share kit, which you just type in clay share on the website in the search bar and it'll take you to anything that has clay share in the name. Okay, so I'm going to load with the pink just on the tip of the brush. I'm going to tap that color into the bristles, and then I'm going to come over here and use a circular motion to come and take off the wet or the damp part of the color. I'm going to circle to the right and circle to the left. A little bit more, tap it in, wipe some off, circle to the right, circle to the left. Now, it is more challenging on this cooped plate compared to a flat surface, so keep that in mind. You may say, I want to do it. You can make a really pretty, like a welcome sign for Christmas, just on a flat piece of clay. Debbie De La Cruz has got a lot of different cutters and things out there. I should have done it on that. I had a piece. I wasn't thinking. So I'm just right and left, and I'm coming into the center. Okay, you can tap it on also if you feel like you need to. Now, I've got to hold this in place because it is a curved surface, and I'm going to add some 111 red geranium to my palette. And I'm going to grab my other stencil. And it really doesn't matter. I'm trying to see if I can match up what I had on here. I think I had it this way. Like I said, it doesn't really matter as long. Okay, so I'm going to hold this down. Now, you could lay this on top, but what happens is you're not going to get flush with the wear. So I put it underneath. And I'm going to try to hold that in place. And just make sure that I have the design over my ornament. So I've got that covered. Okay, so because that stencil is underneath, it's going to be in contact with the wear. I'm going to go to the size 12, a smaller stencil brush, load, because I've got smaller areas here. I don't want a big brush because it's just easier with a smaller design or smaller opening on your stencil. Step down with your size of your brush and you'll find it easier to work with. So you can buy, we have 5 different sizes of the stencil brush. There's a set of 4, or you can buy them individually. Use your discount code. If you're watching this later, today is, what is today? October 23rd. The coupon code is 2024. The coupon code is good through October 30th, I believe is what I said. 2024. So if you're watching this years down the road, those codes will not be. It won't do you any good because they won't work. All right, so I'm just peeking to make sure that I've got good coverage. Tap it a little bit. All right, the reveal. Ta-da! What do you think? Pretty cool. I just thought, and you could do any stencil if you wanted to do, this little one, you could have done it. I mean, there's so many different ones out there. I would just pick a smaller design. You don't want something that is a large because you're not going to get much of it on there. You need something smaller that will look nice in proportion to what you're doing is what you want to do. The marker will burn off. Don't freak out about that. Okay. It's fine. All right. While I've got the yellow on my palette, I'm going to use the stubby brush. I like to use it when I do my centers and my flowers. And it only comes in the one size. It's a mongoose hair. It is a filbert, but when you stipple with it, it gives you a nice, uneven, you can get it's almost like having little dots of color, if that makes sense. So I loaded it, tapped it off to give it a bad hair day. And then you want to tuck that in. You could do it with the Sumi brush if you didn't have the stubby. But when you tap it on, you're getting uneven coverage, so you're getting some highs and lows on it, which is what you want. And then we'll come back and we'll add some nutmeg on there when we get it out. All right. The Essential Stencil Company has great stencils, Susan says. Okay. Essential stencils. So there's all kinds of them out there. You can make your own with your Cricut. or your silhouette or whatever die cut machine that you have. Okay. I'm just double checking everything. Before I forget it, I'm going to do the liner brush, and I'm going to put in that stem to the bud. I'm going to wet my brush, blot. I'm going to grab some of the, blot the moisture out, grab some of the 163 and a little bit of that 164, so the two shadow and mountain pine, and go ahead and pull in that stem. And then I'm just going to do some little pressure strokes to make that calyx. So just, you can draw it in if you want. You don't have to do an actual stroke. Okay. Now, to get the top of the ornament, I did it more golden this time because it was a color we had out. Didn't have to add another color. So I'm going to put on 2 coats of that with a small brush. You could use the tip of the sumi. I'm going to go to a number 4 square shader and that yellow color, the daffodil. And you just want to block in the top of it. So if you'll work from one side and then turn your piece around and go from the other side, it's a good way to get a nice edge to your area that you're working on. We'll let that dry and then come back. Okay. Next, any questions about that? No? You guys are quiet. I can't tell how many people are on. All right, I am going to get rid of the pink. Okay, I don't need that anymore. Let me dry my hand off. All right, so the berries. I don't remember if I've done this technique before, but I'm going to show you. I did use, and you know what? I think I left that off of the color list now that nope, I have it on there. I just didn't pull it out for myself. I'm going to use 111 and 112. So 111 is more the brown red. 112 has more blue in it. So a light and a dark red, okay, is what that basically is. Don't need very much of it, because what we're going to do is basically thin it down, and we're going to drizzle the color on. I'm going to see if I can thin this one. I'm just going to take the liner brush, the 3600 number 2 liner, and I'm going to thin, because I put it up here on the top. It's going to make it a little more difficult. So I've thinned it way down, and then I'm going to grab a generous amount, and I'm going to just like drizzle it on a portion of that berry. And then I'm going to go thin down some of the other red, the 112, and do the same thing to fill in the other area. So it kind of gives it more of a realistic, instead of just having one on one side, one on the other. It's kind of like blending and marbleizing them together. And you can drag it through each other if you want. Can you see that? It's hard to see the 2 colors on the camera. So grab some more of that lighter one, add it, and then come back and grab the dark. I can't tilt it because it'll run. There's so much on there. You do this a couple of times for that nice, vibrant red. And you see, I think you can see that. Okay. Okay. And then we need some nutmeg. Nutmeg is just a warm brown, CC 181. And we're going to make our stems, branches, all of those. We're going to outline the ornament cap, the ornament itself, to outline the flower, do all of our branches and all of our stems. So this This is the nutmeg out here. I know it's kind of hard to see. It's almost like those shadow leaves. I thinned it way down so that it's in the background. It doesn't stand out, right in your face. I wanted it softer. And that's the reason I didn't use any black on this. I wanted to keep the tones down to that vintage look. Excuse me. All right, so I'm going to put some of that out. So it's just a warm nutmeggy color. All right, so we need to slightly thin that. So I'm just going to grab some water with my brush and add it to one side. Don't try to thin the whole puddle. It's going to evaporate before you ever use it. Just thin one side of it and then just go back and thin it as you go. Make sure that you get all the water off the ferrule so that it doesn't run down and end up on your piece. And you can just try to get rid of some more of those hairs. Pull in. Now remember, a brush stroke is color, pressure, and motion. So the more pressure you put, you're going to have a thicker line, and less pressure is a thinner line. And then you need stems to the berries, even though they're still wet. And then we're going to just add those backgrounds. So I've got some up here, and you can just put them anywhere you want and just stay up on the tippy toe and just kind of randomly. I did put them on the pattern, but a lot of times it's easier just to do them freehand. You can always practice on paper first if you don't feel comfortable, or you can transfer those lines and use them. Remember, the pattern is just a guide. If you don't use what you put on, it will fire off. So don't freak out. So I'm just going to come in here and just add some of those. And I'm just barely, see if I can tip this without those running, just barely on the tippy toes. Just tickling the piece with the tip of the brush. Hopefully that makes sense. So just itty bitty lines. And I'm really not even looking at what I've got there. Oh, I did add a berry over here that I forgot to put on the pattern. I don't think I put it on the pattern. Oh, I did. I didn't have it on my pattern because I used mine that I had drawn on the tissue paper. A lot of times I take the tissue and put it down, trace the plate around it, and then I draw on the tissue, and then I create the patterns from that. So I did put a berry over here just because threes are better than, even numbers. So we'll go back and we'll add that in a minute after I'm done with this. But I am going to go ahead and put a stem to it and just pull in. So how many of you are going to give this a try? Keep thinning that nutmeg down. Keep it nice and light. Let's see, where else did I have some? Up here. So have it coming from here in between. Are you guys going to try this? So these are translucent or transparent underglazes, or sometimes commonly referred to as a one-stroke product in the fired world. So see, they can overlap on top of the other ones. Where else did I have some? Let's do, I did come in, and you can shade that ornament cap with that little square shader. Water load, drag off. I'm going to grab just a hint of it, and I'm going to put some of that along the bottom. forgot to do that. And then we'll do the little cap. And then we'll come in here and do our sections. And then you can give it more of a decorative loopy bottom to it if you want. And then if you want to put those sections like the ribbing in the ornament caps, come around the ornament. Now you could always outline with black if you wanted to. I just felt like it was a little too harsh, so I chose to go with this brown color. You guys are awful quiet tonight. Hey Sue, you like the soft colors? Yeah, it may not be for everybody. You can be bolder with, you can change it up and go with more of your traditional colors. On your centers of your flowers, you're going to just give it kind of a wavy outline. And then you want to come in and do your petals. And I don't usually follow my line. I am very loosey-goosey, I call it. And then pull in some stamens, short and long, on each one of those petals. Short and long. Let me zoom in. I get to paint and then I forget to look up and see what you guys are seeing. Remember that color, pressure, and motion. So the more pressure you put down, the wider your line's going to be. If you stay up on the tippy toes, it's going to be finer. And as long as you have that product properly thinned, that will determine how easily it's going to flow off of your brush. See, I'm constantly turning my piece. So that I would say 95% of the time, I pull my strokes towards me. Okay, let's go down here and we're going to do this flower. We still need to stipple some of this on that center. How are we doing on time? Okay. Well, like I said before, I'm not restricted to an hour, so I'm giving you the whole project. So hopefully that's good for you guys. That way you'll have it as a reference later. So I'm using a combination of color strokes and color concentrates, so underglazes. Okay, so we got the flower, we got stems, we got branches. We need another little set of branches up here. Okay, then we're going to switch to, excuse me, I probably should have shaded before I did that. Let me go back and do that. Go back to your number 10 square shader. And I'm going to float some color around the design. So when I say that, I'm going to use the cleanest water I've got here. Water load, this is the number 10 square shader, 5200 number 10. Drag off the side. I'm going to keep the writing towards me. So every time I'm going to do this, keep the writing towards me. And I'm going to corner load, and you can't see that. Corner load with the nutmeg. So I've got about a third to a half blend on my palette, flip it over, color next to color, blend again. Usually the first time I do it, I'm going to do it a couple of times. I'm going to start by going around the ornament. So I'm going to put the color next to the ornament. And I'm just very lightly touching the wear. So that makes like a shadow to kind of lift that up. Now you don't get very far on this stoneware and it ends up grabbing all the moisture out of your brush, so you have to load again. So yes, I am going right over the top of all that because we want to set that back. I'm just going to pick up what I have on my palette. So this is a way to just give more dimension to your piece. Do you have to do this? No. If you don't like or don't have a square shader, you could sumi shade this on like we did the smaller leaves. You could just water load, tip in the color and tuck it in around your design. You can do that also if that's easier for you. But see how that lifts that up? And that's just water out there. Water's your friend. It's not going to hurt it. Not going to hurt it at all. I'm rinsing and reloading every time I go over there to my water. And then if you want your leaves to stand out more, you can come in here. This is called floating color. It is not a float stroke. It's a float of color. In the toll painting world, they do a lot of this. And that's where I come from many moons ago, 35, 40 years ago. I still like to toll paint. Okay, so now my writing was towards the, I'm going to flip the brush over because I'm going on this side. I could turn the piece if I wanted, but if I want to go from this angle, I just flip the brush over so that I can catch that other side. See the difference between this and that? Huge difference as far as it standing out. Let's grab what we've got here and see if we can't use some of it on this smaller leaf. Turn the brush over. I'm going to catch that side, catch that there, and a little bit up there. It was more than an hour. Is awesome. Thank you. You're welcome, Marie. You know, sometimes I don't do well with restrictions. I get to paint and then I just get into it. And if you guys want to sit here and watch me, then more power to you. I'm always, you know, some people skip through the videos, but you're going to miss all my little tips and tricks if you do that, because I am talking the whole time, giving you other information, hopefully, to make your painting easier. So I flip the brush over because I'm going to come at it from this other side now. We're still going to outline this, but we're going to outline with, my brush is starting to drag because it's dry. The wear has just sucked up all the moisture. All right, so let's go down here to this guy. Don't let me forget to put that other berry in. Somebody remind me in a little bit. But you got to remember that water is your friend. So I'm just barely touching that. And I can come back with just water around there just to make sure that it's not like a harsh edge. But I'm going to show you another trick in a little bit on how you can tell what it's going to look like when it fires. Some of you may know that from other videos. Okay, so I probably should have done this before I outlined that flower. Would have made more sense. Because if you get into that, you could smear it. So a lot of times it's a good practice to watch a video and then go back and do it again, because there may be, just like that, something that I've said, you know, that maybe I forgot, and like, oh, it might be easier to do that. You can go around the berries if you want a little bit to lift them off. It's all in how much work you want to put into it. It really is. You can keep it simple or you can keep adding. But I'm telling you, these type of things will make your work different than others and hopefully help you sell your pieces because they, and you're an artist. They think you're an artist when you show them these, which you are. And the more you do this of anything, any painting, the better you're going to get at it. It's practice. And everybody says, oh, you make it look so easy. Well, guess what? You guys are paying and watching me to practice. If you sit down and do it, you will get good at it also. You got to remember, I've been painting for, in ceramics, probably 35 years. And long before that. So the more you do of it, the better you're going to get. We hope. So see, I'm just kind of tucking that around. I'm going to go around that berry, and a lot of that is my pencil mark that the graphite is kind of moving around. It looks gray around it. All right. And other than maybe some on this little bud here, I can bring that out. Very little on my brush. Okay, let's go back and do that other berry real quick. See if I've still got some washy reds here. Just kind of add that. Add the darker one. Okay. All right, so your leaves are outlined with the 164 mountain pine, which is the darkest of your green. Yeah, let's do that. And I'm just gonna, you could use straight out of the bottle if you didn't have any. I've got stuff left over here, so I'm gonna use this and just slightly thin that with some water, one corner of it. Load that on my brush to get a nice point, and you're gonna pull in the center vein. Let me come back in a little bit closer. Any questions? All of a sudden the design pops. Susan says, yeah, it just really, I mean, you can see it. It just makes it lift off the piece. All right, and then you can pull in some little side veins on those holly leaves also. And then come in and do your outline. I'm trying to turn it sideways so you can see it, but I got to remember I got a berry there that I don't want to run. That's all I need. I have red running down. Nancy says she could watch me all night. Well, thank you. I enjoy painting. I don't do this to get rich, that's for sure. I love to share. And I do love to paint. And how many people can say they love their job, you know? I've been very fortunate. Very, very fortunate. Once my kids started school, I was able to stay home and create and craft and sell. And then I bought Colors for Earth back in 2006. So 18 years ago. Lordy, I can't believe it's been that long. And then in 2010, I bought Color Brush. And in 2007, I added our glass enamels to the product line. So it's been a busy time. So I try to come out with a whole bunch of new things. I try to come out with other uses for the product because that's what I wished I had had someone do for me. Because, you can only afford so much. So hopefully you guys appreciate that. We've only had to discontinue a few colors over the years. I know everybody says, oh, why don't you come out with this or this? I like to keep it small. Not good to have a cup of coffee before the veins, Marie says. Probably not. But, I mean, caffeine really doesn't affect me. I mean, I don't drink coffee, but I drink tea up to the time I go to bed, and it really doesn't affect me. So I think everybody's different. A lot of times I will wait and do my outlining or detailing first thing in the morning. That's when you're, fresher. So if you are getting shaky, then definitely wait and do it later. We're almost done. Don't let me forget to splatter is the other thing we need to do. I forgot that last night. Did anybody catch me on that? I forgot to show you that. So I want to definitely do that tonight. So just come back and add your detail. See how I mean, you don't have to do one continuous line. I'm breaking it down into each little loop. We need to have this kind of come off that branch. And I'm steadying myself with my pinky. Did you notice that? That way it keeps me in check and keeps me from shaking a lot of times. So Marie asked, if you do make a mistake with the veins, is there any way to correct it? Okay, so like here I was a little thicker on this vein compared to the others. So what I would do is, good question, come back and maybe thicken a line over here so that they're more even. And so your eye is not drawn to that one area. Is there a way to get it off of there? You could probably take the square shader and a little bit of water and you could shimmy it, but you got to be careful and push it back towards a skinnier line. But be careful because you're going to take off that light watercolor look. You may have to add that back on, but yeah, you could do that if you had to, if you dropped your brush or something like that. Sure. And because you have the gloss medium in those colors, it's going to make it easier to get it off. It's not going to grab to the bisque. And I am using this that has the medium in it. Good question. Thank you for asking that. So even though I didn't, this is the dark color that we had the shading on these little leaves. That's why I chose this color to outline, because it was in both of them. So thick and thin, more pressure is thicker, thinner lines, less pressure. Constantly loading that brush. Side veins. And you always want to start your side veins from where it grows from. It grows from the center out or from the stem out. So that's where that stroke should start. It shouldn't start out here and come in because you're going to have a fat area. When you start from the center vein out, then that increases the center vein larger because that's where you're starting each stroke, which is good. That's okay. So just nice little short, almost like a little C. All right, does anybody see something I forgot? These calyx, you could come back and you could add a little bit of detail so they're just not strokes. Okay, we need to put the brown on the centers. Oh, sorry. I'm going to grab that stubby brush and the nutmeg and just kind of stipple a little bit on one side. All right, what else did I say? I need to go around this berry. You can also put a little divot where your stem comes in your berries. Bring that stem in there a little bit more. You can do like a partial outline. I wouldn't outline the whole thing. And then we need to put the white highlight, sorry about that, on our ornament. So I'm going to go back to the CS602 white, the opaque white. Whoever it was that asked that they didn't have all the color strokes, could they use the concentrates? If you had the CSP02, which is designer glaze medium, you could just get you a 2-ounce bottle of that, and that will make the white color concentrate more opaque and not as translucent. So you could add that one item and definitely would help you on your project. You're welcome. Teresa says this is beautiful. There's a softness, nice change. Yeah, it is a nice, you know, I'm trying to grow and do different things because I get stuck in a rut and I tend to do the same colors all the time. So I'm really trying to, like I said, I tried to pick out colors that were in that color stroke kit. So now I've got the 3600 number 2 liner, and I'm just going to do a nice long comma stroke. So the more pressure is when I'm going to start. I'm going to press down, pull, pull, lift, 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 lift to a tail. And then I can just add some little marks there at the bottom. So that's almost like a little glare or a highlight on that. Now this up here was just, I was showing you transfer. Don't freak out about that. Okay. Berries. We need all the little berries. So what I did was I took, you can do either red. Make sure you still keep that thin down. And I'm going to have to clean out a place because that's just not going to work doing that red up there. I can't get it thin enough. So I'm just going to add some water to both of those reds. So yeah, Angela, that's a way to use your concentrates, you know, and not have to buy another product. You can just add that designer glaze medium to it. Never use that designer over the top of colors. You always want to mix it because it has an opacifier in it. It's what's in the color strokes already. So don't ever do that because it'll milk out your design. It's not pretty. Okay, you can use just the handle of that. So I've thinned this down. I'm going to thin it a little bit more. Just a smidge more. You can use the handle of the brush. You can also take that RD66 little tool and make dots with it. So sometimes I'll just randomly change. So I wanted this really thin. And I'm just going to add wherever I want. And maybe I want some with the darker red. And when you make dots and you keep dotting, it becomes graduated dots. Okay. And if you don't know what I'm talking about when I say that, let me do it on paper. So when you make a dot and you keep going, they get smaller. If you load for every dot, they will be the same size. Okay. Luann says she has to go. Be in touch tomorrow. Okay. Thank you for joining me. I understand. Have a good evening. Okay. So depending on if you want them all the same size, I like on this particular design, I want them all different sizes. So you can just randomly go back and forth. Just keep that stirred up. But if you like the darker red, you can just use the darker. If you don't want the lighter, but you could intermix them just for a little bit more interest. And then the only other thing left to do is to sign and splatter. So you won't miss anything, Luann. That's it. Believe it or not. I think that's it. I need to double check my plate there. I get to talking and then I forget what I'm doing. Getting on late. Hi, Leanne. Hope you made it to where you were headed on your trip. Yeah, so I showed the stenciling, how to layer stencils on the ornament, and then I've just showed some watercolor techniques on how to achieve that. The pattern is out there on the blog. You can use it for whatever you want. I'd love to see what you come up with. I think I'm getting a little crazy with the berries. Maybe I don't need that many on there. I get to talking. I'm just using the two different reds. Any questions about what I've done? You can always watch the replay. You can ask questions after the fact also. I do allow that. Some people don't on their videos. You're in Tennessee. Well, I hope you have great weather over there. And you're in a good part of Tennessee that wasn't affected by the hurricane. You know, I was in South Carolina. I drove right into that first one. Everybody's like, Paula, do you? I'm like, yeah, I know. Weather follows me. Hurricanes, snowstorms, blizzards, whatever. It seems like I always find the weather. Any of you that are in or West Coast, I'm headed to Phoenix in January, teaching at Mahjong's Ceramics there in Phoenix. Love to have you join me. I'll show you that information in just a minute. And they will be bringing the product in. So that will be awesome. So I'm doing 2 days. And if we fill up, I will do a third day. We're doing my whimsical chickens. We're going to do a paste ornament. And then my blue flower plate, which is one of my favorites. All right, what do you guys think? That call it done, other than signing and splattering. Let me sign real quick. So I'm going to sign with that 3600 number 2 liner. Once again, it's all learning your brush. And I personally like the date, or at least the year, on my pieces. Okay, we need to add the green around the edge. See, I almost forgot that. I'm going to go back to the medium Sumi brush. And I'm going to add water. Thank you, Marie. Beautiful weather in Tennessee, not affected. Awesome. That's great. Water load, and I drug off to get just more of a washy type look. So I've just tipped into the 164 that's mixed with the medium, and I'm just going to kind of add it on the edge, just running it back and forth. So brush is aimed towards the edge because that's where the color is on the tip of the brush. You wouldn't want to do it the other way because you're going to get a line of color. Okay, so I'm just kind of adding that watercolory look. I think I've still got enough water in here to... Now, this one has like a ribbed edge to it. You could come all the way down in that if you wanted to. It just depends on what you want. Constantly rinse and reloading. See how I'm starting in one area and then I'm working both directions. Remember what we talked about on that 2-color blend. That way it's not real heavy on one end and then you got nothing on it by the time you go around. If you start in the middle of your area, it disperses that color a little more evenly. Are you coming to North Carolina in March? What is in North Carolina? Oh, do you mean that? No, I am not. My schedule is pretty set through the end of April. Now, I will tell you guys, if you're in the Ohio area, I am going to do the Dayton, it used to be called, or the Hamilton Ceramic Show, which will be towards the end of April. It's right after we've got NCECA in Salt Lake. My glass show is the next few days in Las Vegas, and then I think I have 4 days or 3 days to get to Ohio and set up for a ceramic show. So I am going to be out and about for quite a while to get all that done. I will be coming as far as the East Coast in February, I believe it is. I'm just going back and adding more on here. February, I will be in the Atlanta area at the ceramic show there, and I will be teaching some classes. So I'll have all that on the website soon. It's actually out in Lawrenceville, which is a suburb of Atlanta. And I think it's the second weekend in February. Do you see how that just sets that off? Isn't that nice? Just frames it, is what it does. Now I'm looking for my turntable. And naturally. So some of you may or may not have seen this. I'm going to grab my banding wheel. And that's all I've got here. I thought I had the little turntable. So, and let me remove this photograph. There we go. Okay, so as long as you have some kind of a wheel that turns, and then use the little foam brushes. I call this like a house. You got the sides of the house and the roof of the house. We're going to only put right here is going to touch your piece, and I'm going to do an edge on here. And I am going to do it with the 164 to continue what I've already got there, but I want a sharp, clean edge on it. I am going to mix the medium with it, equal parts, and then I will slightly thin that. I'm going to get that brush wet, mix that up. So the water I put on the brush, and then you want to hold it in one place and use your turntable, banding wheel, Lazy Susan, whatever you're going to use, just to help you turn the piece. You're not actually going to band a line. You can do that if you want. And then turn it over to use the product on the other side of that brush. And you would go around it a couple of times. And then you have a nice edge to it. Okay, isn't that pretty? And do you see that edge? It's nice and even, top and bottom. All right, now we need to splatter, because I forgot to do that last night. But you also, when you splatter, you want to make sure you protect what's around you. And I have a lot of equipment, my screens and everything. So I am going to put up my little shield. So I've got just a piece of craft foam that I'm going to protect some of the cameras with. And I'm going to add some of the, thank you, Leanne, some more of the nutmeg out. And get my trusty old toothbrush. Okay. And I'm going to grab some water And I'm going to slightly thin that down, take a little bit of that off, and I'm going to kind of hold it up. I'm just going to flick it. If you wanted it to be more snowy, you could take and use the opaque white. And like I said, you see, it gets everywhere. And then what I did on the back of my other plate to finish it off, I did not even do an edge, but I did do the mush mush with the gray and the green, and I did splatter it, okay? So that would be a nice finish on the back. On your stoneware, you want to make sure that you dry foot or put your wax on the foot of the piece because you don't want any glaze touching your shelf. And my little trick I told you about looking at this to see how it looks, take a fine mister bottle with just plain water in it. And this is going to be magic. This is going to show you what it's going to look like, or more what it's going to look like when it fires, okay? So if you miss that, it brings out more of the true color after it's glaze fired. Is that cool? Pretty nifty, huh? And then I would immediately, as soon as that water absorbs, there's no wet water puddles, I would take my nice soft fan brush and I would apply 2 coats of a zinc-free clear because I'm on stoneware. If you're on earthenware, like I did this one, you can use the gloss medium 2 coats. You will see the colors through your glaze, which some products on the market you won't, but you do with ours, okay? All right, guys, what do you think? You like it? I think it turned out really nice. I love these stoneware pieces. Let me, I was going to show you, the, here's the classes out in Arizona, Phoenix, January 11th and 12th. And I know there's people that have already signed up. People have been waiting for months for me to get this scheduled. So go check those out. Call them, get your seat reserved. There is, the classroom only holds 16. So if they fill, we'll do another day. Okay. Keep that in mind. Okay. Let me go back to me. All right, guys. I hope you enjoyed this. I want to see what you guys do with it. Change the colors up, make it more traditional if you want. There's so many things to do. Don't forget your discounts if you are a regular Clayshare member or just one of my other peeps out there. Use code CS, capital C, capital S, 102024 for October 2024. And that'll save you 15% off on anything on the website through the 30th. If you're a Clayshare Prime member, you need to go to clayshareprime.com to get your code, and you guys save 20% for a week. So check those out. Make sure you enter those codes. I cannot change it after you place the order. So once it's in, it's in. You are welcome, Nancy. Very welcome. All right, guys, I'm going to sign off, and you guys have a good rest of the evening. I will post a picture of this, and I'll see you next time. Take care.